It's so fun.
Anyway, folks, thank you so much for being so patient. Let me introduce myself to you. My name is Bobby. On behalf of Go Rio Cruises and the City of San Antonio, I want to thank you so much for riding with us on the Riverwalk. We're going to take a 30 to 35 minute ride. We're going to cover about 2.5 miles of the river. We'll finish the tour right here where we started. Before we get into the tour, we do have a couple of quick safety rules. All we ask is that you not stand and please do not smoke for the next 30 minutes. If you want to talk amongst yourselves just so the other guests can hear and enjoy the tour, thank you for talking in a low voice. Thank you so much for not talking on your cell phones for 30 minutes, okay? We separated the groups according to the CDC's guidelines. Thank you for wearing your masks. The water's going to be about 4 feet deep for about 95% of the tour. And speaking of 95, I think that's the forecast for today, about 91, 92 degrees. So it's still hot here in Texas, even though we're almost into November, which is typical here. We are starting in this man-made section right here. This whole section was developed during the 1960s because we had a World's Fair here in April 1968. It was called Hemisphere 68. San Antonio was expecting thousands of people to arrive for that event, and so what they did is they extended the Riverwalk so they could add more hotels and create a shortcut to the fairgrounds. Now the mall that we're turning around in right here, this is called the Shops at River Center. This was built about 20 years later, 1988. And besides the unique design with the river running into the middle of it like this, we also have about 100 stores on 3 levels. Some specialty stores like Ghirardelli, a couple other stores. They're special. Anyway, and then we also have some restaurants right here. Margaritaville, Hooters, and Chili's. It's my first tour of the day. Let me get the kinks out, you know. All right, now as far as we know, the first people that were living on or near this river were the Payaya Indians. Then the Spanish started arriving here in the late 1600s. What the Spanish were doing is they were building up an army as they were participating in the battles that led to the Battle of the Alamo. That's how Texas became part of the United States shortly after that. And then San Antonio, of course, was named our city around that time. Right here to the right, there's a statue. It's a statue of Saint Anthony de Padua. And that was a gift to our city from Portugal for Hemisphere 68. Saint Anthony is the saint of little children and lost items. Our city got its name from that saint on June 13, 1691, when a Spanish missionary conducted the first Catholic Mass in this area. A little bit more about San Antonio. We are nicknamed Military City USA because we have a lot of military bases here. Our city's over 300 years old also. If you look right here to my right where I'm pointing, there's a church right here surrounded by the mall on 3 sides. I know it's hard to see all of it with the trees in the way, so I apologize for that. It is St. Joseph's Catholic Church, and it was built in 1868 by German immigrants that wanted a church where they could worship in German. French and German immigrants first started to arrive in this area in the mid-1800s. Believe it or not, at one point in our city's history, we had more Germans living here than any other ethnicity. That's why even to this day, if you looked at a map of Texas carefully, you would notice San Antonio is almost surrounded by little towns that have very large German populations, like New Braunfels, Schulenburg, and Fredericksburg, just to name 3. Let me pause right here, just make sure no boats are coming from our right side. So everything from to this little footbridge right here. This is our section that was developed in the 60s for the World's Fair. Everything on the other side of this little bridge is the natural part of the river. So when they were developing the Riverwalk in the 1940s, they did not change the shape of the river. They left everything as is. All they did was they added this other section right here that we just left. Now, if you look over my left shoulder, right here where I'm pointing, you'll notice that large orange statue right there. It's supposed to look like flames, and that's why it's called the Torch of Friendship. That was a gift to our city from Mexico in 2002. This is our second location that we have, Monday through Thursday. We have two locations. This is right here at the Hilton Palacio de Rio, which is this hotel right here on the left. And Palacio de Rio in Spanish means palace on the river. Construction started on this 500-room hotel in late 1967. If you remember, I said the World's Fair began a few months later. The Hilton was in a big hurry to make sure they were open and ready for that event. So what they did is they hired a builder named H.B. Zachary. He built the first 4 floors right here on site. But all these rooms above us right here, these are modular rooms. The rooms were being built a few miles from here to speed up the building process. And when they arrived, the rooms were fully furnished and ready for a guest to check in. So all the builder had to do was start stacking the rooms up on top of each other. And that's how the hotel was completed in 202 working days, which is 7.5 months. 500 rooms, 7.5 months, pretty fast. Now, as far as we know, the first people that were living on or near the river were the Payaya Indians. And when the Spanish arrived, they had an army camp here in 1722. This is La Villita, which is Spanish for the little village. To the left above the seats, there's a little archway. It says entrance to La Villita, and there you'll find an old village started by French and German immigrants in the mid-1800s. Now it's gift shops. On the right, on the stage, we have 5 bells to honor the 5 missions here in town. And we had a movie scene filmed on our stage once. The movie came out in 2000. It was called Miss Congeniality with Sandra Bullock. And the scene in the movie was the scene where the beauty contestants had to answer questions about world peace. So we have had a couple of movie scenes filmed on or near the Riverwalk. Now right here to the right is a statue of a cowboy during a cattle drive. It sits outside of this museum called the Briscoe Western Art Museum. It's named after our late Texas Governor, Dolph Briscoe. So if you like things that have to do with cowboys or the old American West, you'll find things inside like beautiful paintings, old saddles, old rifles, and a recreation of the Battle of the Alamo. All right? So let me get the boat lined up to go safely underneath this bridge right here. This section of the river that we are starting to enter, is very shallow, and the ground underneath it is hard packed. This was a popular crossing point of the river for the early settlers of the 1800s. They would come down here, water their horses, wash their buggies, and pick up grain from a grain mill that used to sit on the right called the Nat Lewis Mill. If you look to my right here, you'll notice a tree and a couple of benches and this little statue of a table. But look at what everything is sitting on. Everything is sitting on the roots of the tree. And by itself, it made a heart-shaped island. Do you see that? Look, I'm tracing it with my hand so you can see. It's not perfect, but it definitely looks like a heart. And that's why they call that little island Marriage Island, because many people have real weddings right there because they feel it's good luck to get married there. That was also the site of the first Catholic Mass in 1691. I don't know if you noticed the Christmas lights hanging from the trees, but the lights are hanging from the trees all year long. We just don't turn them on but once a year, the night after Thanksgiving, and then they stay on every night until New Year's Day. And This is the time of the year the city of San Antonio employees, like that gentleman on that barge in front of us right there, they're testing the lights and replacing any that don't work or have fallen into the river. The holidays are a very busy time for us because not only do we have a lot of visitors that want to ride at night and see the lights, a lot of the people that live here want to come down and look at the lights, and the kids are out of school, so we are very busy during that season. This building right here on my left with the U.S. flag on top is a 400-foot tall building called the Tower Life Building. This was built in 1929. That was the year of the famous stock market crash that led up to the Great Depression. Now that we're closer to the building, if you look at the very top, you'll notice gargoyles sticking out of the edges. And if you look where I'm pointing, right here underneath the second floor windows, you'll notice these grotesque-looking faces. Everyone see that, where I'm pointing right here? Now, the reason the gargoyles and the faces were put on the building back then by the original owners is because they were superstitious and they thought this would protect them against evil spirits and bad luck. So as you can see, we have a city employee here on the river with us. We share the river with the City of San Antonio employees and the park police. Anybody else that wants to bring a boat onto the river needs written permission from the city first. Okay, it's going to get noisy here, so let's pass the boat and I'll tell you a couple more things, okay? I'm going to honk the horn here also to let boats know that we're coming out of this section. The City of San Antonio employees do work around the Riverwalk. They clean the river. They have these little boats and they use nets to pick up some of the trash. And then there's a big barge that has two arms that come out from the side with gigantic nets. They also pick up trash and they water the plants, and as you see, he's doing right there. I was going to tell you that right there where that boat was stopped is a door that comes up from underneath the water. And it was put there after that was pretty devastating. So now we have two doors on the Riverwalk. If the Riverwalk is ever in danger of flooding now, they can close both of those doors, and then pumps that were built into the river in the 1920s release water from that section into this one to keep it level and protect the hotels and the restaurants from flooding. That was the deepest part right there of the tour. Right there where we just passed, the water was 20 feet deep, and now we're right back at 4 feet, and we'll stay at 4 feet. So we're going to make a right turn. We're going to go back into this horseshoe-shaped part and start working our way back toward the mall. If we were to go straight ahead into that section in front of us, there you would find mostly hotels, condominiums, and apartments. That's the only section of the Riverwalk where fishing is allowed. We do have fish in this river. We have perch, sunfish, catfish, just to mention a few of the many different types. Before we turn, look at this tree in front of us. This is another one of those bald cypress trees like the one on Marriage Island. Except this one is 90 feet tall, over 200 years old, with a circumference of 25 feet. Probably the largest tree on the Riverwalk. This is that other floodgate I was telling you about that helped us to keep the Riverwalk from flooding. This one comes down like a garage door. Folks, it may get noisy here for a couple of minutes because of all the construction on the right. But I need to show you two things right here. Right there where this boat is docked, right there to the right of it, is the Esquire Tavern. This was the first bar to open up on the Riverwalk in 1933. They opened up 1 minute after the official end of Prohibition. So once word reached Texas that alcohol was no longer illegal in the United States, they stopped pretending to be a barber shop and they started serving legally. On the left right here is the Drury Hotel, and if you look in the windows at the chandeliers of this hotel, they took pictures of this building during that flood of 1921. In the old photographs, you could see that the floodwaters were touching the chandeliers in that building. That used to be our city public service building back then. Well, I did not know that we had another location open, so I apologize for that, but it looks like this location is open right here. This is our Aztec location. There's a big theater on the right here called the Aztec Theater that opened in 1926 as a silent movie theater. These days they use it mostly for rock concerts. All right, there's a couple of hotels right here I'd like to tell you a little bit about. The beige-colored building coming up on the right is the Moncada Hotel, and that building used to be a factory that made saddles in 1901. It was called the El Frank Saddlery, and they were known for making high-quality saddles. The hotel on our left is La Mansión, which is mansion in Spanish. This building used to be a school back in 1853. This was a school called St. Mary's School for Boys. And what happened here is that in 1966, two former students came back and bought the building. And then they changed their minds and decided they could make more money if they turned it into a hotel. Folks, we're about at the halfway point. Everyone still doing okay? Yep. Yeah. All right, good. We're going to look at an optical illusion right here. As soon as we come out from underneath this bridge, if you will quickly look up at this building on the left, on the other side of the bridge, because of the way that it was built, it will appear as though it's a flat freestanding wall. Okay, so if you're ready, look up again to the left right here, and you'll see why I said that. The building used to be a hospital. It was called the Nix Hospital, which opened in 1930. About a year and a half ago, it was closed for good, so the building is now vacant. These are more bald cypress trees all around us. I would guess these are probably about 200 years old. All right, so we are going to make a right turn right here. We're going to enter the part of the Riverwalk that has the most restaurants all in one area, so we could talk a little bit about how our river was transformed into a tourist attraction. In front of us right here, this is the Hyatt Regency, which opened in 1981. This hotel was built pretty close to the Alamo, so close that if you walked through the doors right here and went straight out the other side of the building, you would come out directly in front of the Alamo, right across the street from the front doors. All right, so this is the part of the Riverwalk right here where you will find the most restaurants all in one spot. So after the tour, you can come back for lunch or dinner and have a margarita by the river and watch Bobby go back and forth all day long. And some of your food choices here are seafood, Italian, steak, barbecue, just to mention a few of the many different types of foods you'll find here. An architect named Robert Hugman designed our Riverwalk in 1941. He got his ideas from cities in Italy. Not only did he have to make this a reason for people to want to visit our city, he also had to make sure that it wouldn't flood the way it did 20 years earlier. So for everything that he did to the Riverwalk, Robert Hugman is remembered as the father of the Riverwalk. And there is a statue of him that's coming up on our right here by the stairs leading up this bridge. All right, so 1941 is when all this started getting developed. By 5 years later, 1946, the first business finally opened up on the Riverwalk. It was this Mexican restaurant on our right, Casa Rio. This used to be a house on land that was granted by the King of Spain in 1777. And not only that, they were the first to offer boat rides on the Riverwalk. Back in the 1940s, you could take a boat ride from this restaurant on a gondola. And in the 1960s, during the World's Fair, they were renting paddle boats from here. They were the foot pedal type, and you could paddle around on your own. All right, did you notice how we went around in a big circle? We're right back here at this man-made section where we started, so we're going to make a left turn. We're going to start working our way back to the mall. All right, I'm going to pull over here and let this park police officer pass us by. Started operations 3 years ago this month. It was October 2017 when we were awarded a 10-year contract from the city to provide tours on the river. We became the very first boat company to use all electric boats. All the other boat companies before us used gas motorboats. These are powered by 16 car batteries in the center. I'm standing over the propeller motor, which was built in Germany. On a full charge, if we absolutely had to, we could go a day and a half before the batteries run down completely, but we try to charge our boats up every night. We have 40 boats total in our fleet. Right now, we're not using more than 20, and the center seats have been removed. So that's a little bit about us and our boats. I want to show you one more thing today, folks. If you look to my right, look toward the sky. That's the Tower of the Americas right there. That was the centerpiece of our World's Fair. The tower is 700, and right today from up there you can see a lot of our city and surrounding counties. All right, well, guess what? We're right back at the mall where we started our tour. So once again, excuse me, my name is Bobby. I'd like to thank you so much for riding with us today. I hope you enjoyed the tour. I hope you learned a little bit about our city. Now is a good time for you to start checking around you to make sure that you don't leave anything behind on the boat. Also, as we get ready to dock here once again at the mall, please just give me a moment to tie the boat down before you stand up to get off. Don't forget to leave a little bit of space in between groups so we can do our best to stay as safe as possible. Finally, I would just like to say that tipping your boat captain for a job well done is allowed, accepted, and much appreciated. So thank you again for visiting us here in San Antonio today. Thank you so much for riding with me. Enjoy the rest of this beautiful day.